Other Minds, The Octopus, the Sea, and the Deep Origins of Consciousness, by Peter Godfrey-Smith. Introduction. Imagine you're weightless, floating in a silent, blue-green world. You're snorkeling in a quiet bay in Sydney, sunlight filtering down through the water. You see something moving under a rocky ledge, something surprisingly large, and you dive down to get a closer look. What you find is a creature that seems to have materialized from another dimension. It looks something like an octopus attached to a turtle. It has a prominent head and 8 flexible arms, lined with suckers, flowing directly from it. Its back is fringed with a delicate, rippling skirt, but it's the colors that take your breath away. The animal seems to be every color at once: red, gray, blue-green, with veins of silver that pulse like glowing power lines. Patterns of color appear and vanish in less than a second. This creature, a giant cuttlefish, is about 3 feet long. It hovers a few inches above the seafloor, watching you. And as you swim down again and again, holding your breath until your lungs burn, you realize something profound. It seems just as interested in you as you are in it. This isn't just an animal tolerating your presence. This is an engagement, a meeting of minds. This very experience happened to Peter Godfrey-Smith, a philosopher and avid scuba diver, and it sparked the incredible journey that became his book, Other Minds. This isn't just another nature book. It's a detective story that takes us back 600 million years to solve one of the greatest mysteries of all: the origin of consciousness. Godfrey-Smith poses a revolutionary question. What if evolution, through a series of chance events, built a complex, intelligent mind not just once, but twice, on 2 completely separate paths? On one path, there is us, vertebrates, mammals, primates. On the other, there is the cephalopod, the octopus, the cuttlefish, and the squid. They are, as he puts it, probably the closest we will come to meeting an intelligent alien. Today, we're going to dive deep into that alien world. We will travel back to the dawn of animal life, witness the evolutionary fork in the road that separated our ancestors from theirs, and explore the bizarre, brilliant mind of the octopus. By the end of our journey, you won't just see these creatures as strange inhabitants of the deep. You'll see them as a second, independent answer to the question of how a mind can be built. And in doing so, you might just understand your own mind in a way you never have before. Book summary. Our story begins not with a meeting, but with a departure. A separation that happened in the murky oceans about 600 million years ago. Imagine a creature, perhaps no bigger than a few millimeters, shaped like a small, flattened worm. It had a simple nervous system and maybe some light sensitive patches for eyes. It was nothing special, really, just one of countless life forms in the ancient sea. But this little creature is incredibly important to our story, because it was the last common ancestor of you, me, and an octopus. From this single point, the great tree of animal life branched in 2. On one path, an evolutionary journey began that would eventually lead to fish, then reptiles, birds, mammals, and finally, to us. We call this the vertebrate line. The other path led to the vast world of invertebrates, insects, crabs, snails, and worms. For the most part, animals on this branch developed smaller nervous systems. But there was one spectacular exception. Within a group called the mollusks, a new experiment began. This was the birth of the cephalopods. They are an island of mental complexity in the vast sea of invertebrate animals. So, if we want to understand their minds, we can't rely on kinship or shared history. We have to see them for what they are: an independent experiment in the evolution of a large brain and complex behavior. Evolution, it seems, built a mind twice over. To understand this second mind, we first have to understand the world that created it. For most of Earth's history, life was a single-celled affair. But even these tiny organisms weren't just passively floating around. A simple bacterium like E. coli has a sense of taste or smell. It can move toward food and away from toxins. It has a primitive form of memory, comparing what its world is like now to how it was a few moments ago. It solves the problem of navigating space by using time. Eventually, some of these single cells started living together, forming the first multi-celled organisms, the first animals. And with that came a new challenge: coordination. If you are a single cell, acting is simple. But if you are a body made of millions of cells, how do you get all your parts to work together to achieve a single, coherent action? This is where the nervous system comes in. Think of it this way. There are two fundamental problems a nervous system can solve. The first is linking what you sense to what you do. A lookout in a tower sees the enemy coming and sends a signal to the rider below to take action. This is the sensory motor role. But there's a second, more basic problem. Imagine a team of rowers in a boat. If they all row whenever they feel like it, the boat will just spin in circles. They need someone to call the stroke, to coordinate all their tiny individual actions into one powerful, unified macro action. This is the action-shaping role. For a long time, life in the oceans was quiet. During a period called the Ediacaran, the seafloor was like a peaceful garden. Animals existed, some several feet long, but they didn't seem to do much. There were no claws, no shields, no obvious weapons. There is almost no evidence of predation. Life was a slow, self-contained affair. During this time, it's possible that the first nervous systems were primarily concerned with that second problem, simply coordinating the body, helping these strange, soft creatures crawl and maintain their rhythms. But then, everything changed. Around 542 million years ago, the Cambrian explosion ignited a biological arms race. The quiet garden became a battlefield. Predation became a central fact of life. Animals began to evolve in response to other animals. When one creature develops better armor, another develops a better way to pierce it. And crucial to this new world was the evolution of sophisticated senses, especially eyes. For the first time, animals could see each other from a distance. The world was flooded with information. If a yard-long predator is swooping down on you, you need to know it's happening, and you need to take evasive action, fast. The brain evolved to process this flood of new information and to direct complex, high-stakes behavior. The mind, from this point on, evolved in response to other minds. It was in this new, dangerous world that the ancestors of the octopus took a radical evolutionary turn. Like other mollusks, their first response to predation was to grow a hard, protective shell. For millions of years, they were like limpets, crawling on the seafloor. But then, some of them did something remarkable. They filled their shells with gas, turning them into buoyancy devices. They lifted off the seafloor and entered the open water. A limpet became a zeppelin. Once they were floating, the muscular foot they used for crawling was freed up. Part of it evolved into a siphon for jet propulsion, and the other part flowered into a cluster of grasping tentacles. They became fearsome predators, some reaching over 18 feet long, the terrors of the ancient seas. For hundreds of millions of years, this was the cephalopod story. But then, as fish became larger, faster, and smarter, the shelled cephalopods were outcompeted. All of them went extinct, with one exception, the nautilus, a living fossil that still drifts through the Pacific today. But another group took an even bigger gamble. Sometime before the age of the dinosaurs, some cephalopods began to give up their shells entirely. This was an incredible risk. It left them soft, vulnerable, and exposed. But it also gave them an unparalleled freedom of movement. The octopus, which lost its shell completely, became a body of pure possibility. With almost no hard parts besides its beak and eyes, it can squeeze through an opening the size of its eyeball. It can change its shape, its texture, and its color in an instant. This body, so flexible, so vulnerable, so full of potential, is the key to understanding the octopus mind. To control such a body, one that can move in an almost infinite number of ways, requires an immense amount of neural processing. This might be why they evolved such a large nervous system. A common octopus has about 500 million neurons. That's more than a rat and in the same range as a dog. But here's where it gets truly strange. The majority of those neurons, nearly 2/3 of them, are not in its brain. They are in its arms. Each arm has a mind of its own. To a degree, an arm that has been surgically removed can still perform basic motions like reaching and grasping. The suckers on its arms are packed with chemical receptors. An octopus can taste and smell just by touching something. So how does an octopus control itself? It seems to be a hybrid system, a mixture of centralized, top-down commands from the brain and localized, bottom-up decisions made by the arms. The brain might give a general command, like reach for that crab, but the arm itself handles the fine details, exploring and feeling its way there. It's as if the central brain is a conductor leading a jazz orchestra, where each player is a brilliant improviser. The conductor gives a direction, but trusts the players to fill in the notes. When you watch an octopus, you see this strange mix of deliberation and autonomy. It might cautiously extend a single arm to investigate a strange new object. That's you? While its large eyes watch you intently. This suggests a deliberate, brain-guided action. But at other times, its arms seem to wander with a life of their own. If you were an octopus, you would, to some extent, guide your arms, and to some extent, you would just watch them go. Your own body would be partly you, and partly a collection of intelligent, semi-independent agents. This alien neurology gives rise to a truly remarkable intelligence. In the lab, octopuses have shown they can navigate mazes and unscrew jars to get food. But it's their unscripted, often mischievous behavior that truly reveals their mind. There's the famous story from a lab in Germany of an octopus named Otto who learned that he could short-circuit an annoyingly bright overhead light by squirting a jet of water at it. This became so expensive that he had to be released back into the wild. Then there was Charles, an octopus in a 1950s learning experiment. While his tank mates, Albert and Bertram, politely pulled a lever for a food reward, Charles decided on a different approach. He repeatedly bent the lever with such force that he eventually broke it, ending the experiment. He also took a dislike to the lamp above his tank and tried to pull it into the water. And most famously, he developed a habit of waiting until an experimenter approached, at which point he would poke his eyes above the water and shoot a powerful jet of water directly at them. The scientist, Peter Godfrey-Smith, noted dryly in his paper, the variables responsible for the maintenance and strengthening of the squirting behavior in this animal were not apparent. Charles wasn't learning a task, he was expressing a personality. Octopuses show a surprising ability to recognize individual humans, even when they are wearing identical uniforms. One octopus in a New Zealand lab took a dislike to a particular staff member and would soak her with a jet of water every time she walked past the tank. In contrast, they can also show a startling curiosity. A diver, Matt Lawrence, once had an octopus gently take his hand and lead him on a 10-minute tour across the sea floor, ending at the octopus's den. Perhaps most telling is a story from the researcher Jean Boll. She was feeding her octopuses thawed squid, which they don't particularly like. One day, as she walked past a tank, she noticed an octopus waiting for her. It hadn't eaten its food. Instead, it was holding the piece of squid conspicuously. As Boll watched, the octopus slowly carried the squid across the tank to the outflow drain, all the while keeping its eyes fixed on her, and then deliberately pushed the squid down the drain, an unmistakable gesture of distaste. This is not the behavior of a simple machine. This is mischief and craft. It's a curious, exploratory, and flexible intelligence. While octopuses are the masters of shape-shifting, their cousins, the cuttlefish, are the masters of color. A giant cuttlefish is a living, breathing work of art. Its skin is a high-resolution screen connected directly to its brain. This screen is made of millions of tiny, pigment-filled sacs called chromatophores, each surrounded by muscles. When the brain sends a signal, these muscles can expand or contract a sac in an instant, revealing or hiding its color. There are layers for red, yellow, and brown. But that's only part of the story. Beneath this layer are other cells that act like tiny, iridescent mirrors, reflecting light to create blues, greens, and shimmering silvers, colors the chromatophores can't make on their own. The result is a creature that can produce not just static patterns, but moving displays, like clouds passing across its skin. They use this incredible ability for camouflage so perfect it can fool a human who is actively looking for it. They use it for startling enigmatic displays to confuse predators. And they use it for complex signaling with each other, especially during mating rituals, where males engage in elaborate dances of color and posture. And yet, here is one of the deepest mysteries in all of biology. As far as we can tell, cephalopods are colorblind. Their eyes contain only one type of photoreceptor, which should, by all accounts, only allow them to see in shades of gray. How can they be masters of an art form they cannot even perceive? How do they match the color of their background so perfectly if they can't see color? For years, this paradox baffled scientists, but recent discoveries have offered a mind-bending possibility. It turns out that the light-sensitive proteins found in their eyes are also present all over their skin. In 2015, researchers showed that a patch of octopus skin, completely detached from the animal, could still react to light by changing the shape of its chromatophores. In other words, an octopus can, in some sense, see with its skin. This doesn't fully solve the color blindness problem, but it opens up fascinating possibilities. Perhaps by rapidly changing the color filters, the chromatophores, in its top layer of skin, and monitoring how the light changes on the light-sensitive cells below, the animal can deduce the color of the incoming light. It would be like a photographer swapping colored filters in front of a black and white camera to figure out the colors of a scene. But beyond camouflage and signaling, there seems to be another dimension to their color changes. Sometimes, they seem to be an inadvertent broadcast of their inner state, a chromatic chatter that reveals the electrical tumult within their brains. Godfrey-Smith describes watching a cuttlefish at rest, seemingly half asleep, as it cycled through a symphony of complex color chords, as if dreaming in color. This brings us to the ultimate question. With all this complexity, the distributed brain, the intelligent arms, the skin that can see, the complex behaviors, what does it actually feel like to be an octopus? Is there a subjective experience, an inner life, or is it all just dark inside? This is the great mystery of consciousness. Philosophers have two main ways of thinking about its evolution. The latecomer view suggests that subjective experience is a recent development, a product of highly complex, integrated brains like those found in mammals and some birds. On this view, a frog or a fish might have complex behaviors, but there's nothing it feels like to be them. The other option is the transformation view. This idea proposes that a basic form of subjective experience is very old and widespread in the animal kingdom. It might have started as a simple, undifferentiated white noise, a background buzz of being alive. Then, as nervous systems became more complex, this basic experience was transformed. It became more integrated, more refined, and more structured. Pain, for instance, seems like a very ancient form of experience. Experiments show that fish and even crabs will behave in flexible, non-reflexive ways to avoid pain, suggesting they genuinely feel it. The octopus seems to challenge any simple answer. Its intelligence is undeniable, its behavior flexible and curious, but its mind is so decentralized. Does the central brain have a unified experience, or is the octopus a federation of conscious parts? We may never know for sure, but to watch one is to feel the presence of a subject, an individual who is experiencing its world. There is one final poignant twist to the story of the cephalopod mind. These large-brained, intelligent, and curious animals live incredibly short lives. Most octopuses and cuttlefish live for only 1 or 2 years. The giant Pacific octopus, the largest of them all, might make it to 4. What is the point of building such a magnificent, expensive brain, only for it to vanish in such a short time? What is the use of learning about the world if you have no time to apply that knowledge? The answer, again, lies in evolution. An organism's lifespan is a trade-off, tuned by its environment. If you live a very risky life, with a high chance of being eaten by a predator at any moment, evolution doesn't favor strategies for long-term survival. It favors a live fast, die young approach. It's better to grow quickly, reproduce once in a massive burst, and put all your energy into that single shot at passing on your genes. This is the price the octopus paid for abandoning its shell. The same evolutionary move that gave it a body of pure possibility also made it exquisitely vulnerable. This vulnerability set its biological clock to tick at a frantic pace. Their lives are rich in experience, but incredibly compressed. But what if things were different? What if they had a safe harbor? In a bay in eastern Australia, a single piece of metal junk dropped on the seafloor decades ago started a strange chain of events. An octopus made it its den. It ate scallops and left the shells behind. The pile of shells provided building material for other octopuses to make dens. More octopuses brought more scallops, which created more shells, allowing for even more dens. Over years, this positive feedback loop created an underwater city, a dense settlement of octopuses that scientists have named Octopolis. Here, in this crowded human-made environment, octopuses behave in ways rarely seen elsewhere. They are intensely social. There are constant interactions, fights, chases, and signaling. An aggressive male will turn dark and rise up in a threatening Nosferatu pose. A submissive octopus will become pale or show a blotchy pattern. They seem to be navigating a complex social world. Octopolis is a glimpse of another possible evolutionary path. It shows what happens when these curious, intelligent animals are put in a context that demands social navigation. It is a place where their minds are constantly engaged not just with their physical environment, but with other minds. It's a tantalizing look at what the octopus might have become, if its evolutionary story had gone just a little differently. Commentary. Peter Godfrey-Smith's Other Minds is more than just a fascinating book about sea creatures. It's a profound meditation on the nature of intelligence and the miracle of consciousness itself. It takes you on a journey so deep into the past that you emerge with a completely new perspective on the present moment, and on the mind you use to perceive it. The most powerful lesson, for me, is the humbling realization that our way of being is not the only way. We humans live inside our heads, in a world shaped by an endless inner monologue. Our thoughts are often structured by language. The octopus shows us a completely different model. Its mind is not just in its head, it is woven throughout its body. It thinks with its arms. It sees with its skin. It lives in a world of texture, taste, and flowing color that we can only dimly imagine. The octopus isn't a lesser intelligence, it's a parallel intelligence. It's a reminder that the universe of minds is far richer and more varied than we could ever guess. This understanding naturally leads to a sense of radical empathy. The book forces you to look at any animal, from a crab on the beach to a bird in your backyard, and ask, what does the world look like from that point of view? What does it feel like to be that creature? It dismantles the easy assumption that other animals are just simple, reflexive machines and replaces it with a deep sense of wonder and respect for the countless forms of subjective experience that life has created. And finally, the book is a poignant love letter to the ocean. The author's dedication simply reads, "For all those who work to protect the oceans, the sea is the cradle of life, the place where the first nerve cells fired, where the story of all minds began." And as Godfrey-Smith reminds us, this ancient, creative world is under threat from overfishing, pollution, and acidification. To understand the mind of the octopus is to understand that we are connected to it, not just by a distant, worm-like ancestor, but by the shared home that created us both. To lose them, and the world they inhabit, is to lose a part of our own origin story. So what can we take away from this incredible journey? First, the next time you find yourself near the ocean, or even just looking at a picture of it, take a moment. Remember that you are looking at the place where thinking began. Cultivate a sense of awe for that vast, creative, and fragile world. Second, practice looking at the non-human world with new eyes. Don't just see a spider. See a creature with a unique sensory world, a different set of problems to solve, and a different kind of mind. The book teaches us that the world is full of other minds, and paying attention to them enriches our own. And third, reflect on the nature of your own consciousness. Notice your inner monologue, the stream of words that shapes your thoughts. And then, for a moment, try to imagine what it would be like to think without it. To think with your entire body. The octopus gives us a reference point to appreciate the unique, and perhaps strange, way that our own minds work. We've explored the depths together today, from the dawn of life to the octopus's garden. But this summary is like looking at the ocean from the shore. Peter Godfrey-Smith's book is the scuba gear that lets you dive in. If you felt a spark of wonder today, a curiosity about these other minds, I encourage you to read the book for yourself. It's more than just a collection of facts, it's an invitation to see the world, and yourself, with new eyes. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if this journey into the deep has brought you some value, please show your support by liking this video and subscribing to Billionaire's Bookshelf. It tells us we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next exploration into a book that can change your life. Thank you for listening, and let's continue to grow our minds together.